Hello, welcome to the Forever Faithful podcast. This is Anthony Ibarra. Glad to have you on the podcast, and thanks for listening. All right, been studying out of the book of Ruth in our Sunday school class, and I've had a great time with it, and I love the book of Ruth. They say it's a book of romance, a book of redemption, and it has all those things in it. And it's a very small book, fast book, a very compelling book, and no doubt we could get a lot from it. So I want to talk to you about the life lessons that we could glean from the book of Ruth. So let's get into it right now. The book of Ruth. Let me read to you real quick. Now it came to pass in Ruth 1, it says, now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled. So this is after Joshua, before the king. This is when the judges ruled. All right. And some very amazing stories in the book of Judges, and the rulers, and a lot of miracles, some powerful stories. But this is where this book right here, this takes place, is in the time of the judges. They didn't have no kings. Moses is dead. Joshua is dead. And now the people who rule the land and the laws was some men that got put in charge, which are the judges. But it says here that there was a famine in the land. All right. So two things. This is the time of the judges, and now there's famine in the land. And a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to sojourn in the country of Moab. He and his wife and his 2 sons. So we got here a family of 4, a husband, a wife, 2 sons. Now, I'm going to just look at the names here real quickly. So we see it's a time of judges. And you got to realize in the time of judges that people did that which was right in their own eyes. That's all through the book of Judges. They did that which was right in their own eyes. So they had the law, they had judges, but people just made decisions. No king made the decisions for them. Moses was gone. He didn't make the decisions for them. Joshua was off the scene. He didn't make the decisions for him. So he did what was right in their own eyes. And so there's famine in the land. God's judging the land. And now, if you just read the last 3 chapters of Judges, a very interesting story happened. A man of Bethlehem, Judah, a Levite, he's sojourning in the country. He runs into a certain area where the Benjamites were. And he stays at a man's house, and he and his concubine. And all of a sudden, the Benjamites came out to the man and knocked on the door and wanted to know him. And they said, no, this is my guest. And all of a sudden, very strange story. They take his the host gives the Benjamites his concubine, and they take her and obviously did some things with her. She came back at the door of her master. He comes out. He sees her. He said, let's go. She's dead. And so he does something very interesting. He cuts them into 12 pieces and sends them through all the tribes of Israel. And they come back at the Benjamites, which were obviously some very mighty men. They fought against Judah, won, and all of a sudden they were destroyed. They destroyed all their women, just left a remnant left. And just by reading those last 3 chapters, not saying, some people say this has happened in the time of Gideon. I don't know, but there's judgment in the land, wickedness in the land. There's with judgment, there comes famine. If this is the time where this happened with Levite and him cutting his concubine into 12 different pieces, no doubt that's going to hurt people's economy with less men and judgment upon the land. But there's famine in the land here. And so this Bethlehemite Judah named Elimelech, if you go verse 2, it says the name of the man was Elimelech. Now, that just in his name alone, if you just look it up in the Strongs, it means God is king, or God is my king. And then the name of his wife is Naomi, and her name means pleasantly. Then you have the name of his two sons, Mahlon and Chilion. Mahlon means sickly. Chilion means wasted away. The Ephrathites of Bethlehem, Judah, and they came into a country of Moab and continued there. So just out of their names, right here we have Elimelech. He says, God is my king. Obviously, God, before there was even any kings, he made God king of his life. And his wife was pleasant. You got to understand, they're in the time of the judges. There's famine in the land. Their children are sick. They're very unhealthy, but Naomi decides to stay pleasant. She continues to keep her name Naomi. She's pleasant this whole time, even during the time of famine, during the time of the judges, during this whole move from Bethlehem, Judah, to the country of Moab. And the reason why they went to the country of Moab, because it's in the country, that's where they grow the vegetables, the barley, the harvest of the wheat. And that's what's going on right here in verse 3. And Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left and her two sons. So after all this going on, judgment in the land, Elimelech, who God is my king, he dies. And she's left there with her two sons, Mahlon, Chilion. And then the Bible says, and they took them wives of the women of Moab. And the name was Orpah, and the name of the other Ruth. And they dwelled there about 10 years. All right, so Elimelech died. They're dwelling there with their wives. They were there for about 10 years. Okay, and Mahlon and Chilion died also, both of them. And the woman was left of her two sons and her husbands. And so this story starts with a lot of trials, a lot of testings, and definitely tragedy is going on right here. And so this is where she gets into, then she arose with her daughter-in-law, that she might return from the country of Moab, for she had heard in the country of Moab how the Lord had visited his people, given them bread. So they go back to Bethlehem, Judah, because God realizes there's the famine's gone, there's bread back in the home. Wherefore she went forth out of the place where she was, and her two daughters-in-law with her, and they went on their way to return unto the land of Judah. And Naomi said unto her two daughters-in-law, Go, return each to her mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you, as ye have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant that ye may find rest, each of you in the house of her husband. Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voices and wept. And she said unto her, Surely we will return with thee unto thy people. And Naomi said, Turn again, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Are there yet any more sons in my womb, that they may be your husbands? Turn again, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. If I should say I have hope, if I should have a husband also tonight, should also bear sons, why would ye tarry for them till they are grown? Would ye stay for them from having husbands? Nay, my daughters, for it grieveth me much for your sake that the hand of the Lord is gone out against me. And they lifted up their voice and wept again, and Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clave unto her. And she said, Behold, thy sister-in-law is gone back unto her people and unto her gods. Return thou after thy sister-in-law. And Ruth said, entreat me not to leave thee nor return from following after thee. For where thou goest, I will go. Where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God my God. Where thou diest, I will die, and there will I be buried. The Lord do so to me, and more also, if aught but death part thee and me. So now we get into who Ruth is. She's a daughter-in-law. Orpah stood behind. Ruth stays with her, and she is committed to Naomi. She's committed to her. I mean, she said this great statement, which a lot of people use in their wedding vows. I use this in my own wedding vows, but she says this great statement, and she said, "Entreat me not to leave thee or return from following after thee." But you got to understand, Naomi, she's bitter. Later on, you will come to a part of the passage where she said, no longer call me Naomi, but call me Mara, for I am bitter. So she's bitter. And I guarantee you, when people are bitter, they don't want nobody around them. They just want to feel sorry for themselves. They say, hey, leave me alone. My husband's dead. My 2 sons are dead. Hey, go find yourself a husband. Let me be. The Lord dealt bitterly with me. The Lord's hand's against me. And that's the situation she is. But this is a story of success. This is a story of a young lady named Ruth who's committed to Naomi. And that commitment to her brings her great success. So Ruth is a successful person. And let me tell you something, success is more than making money. I know we live in a material world. They're always talking about, the bigger house, the nice cars, the big bank accounts, your portfolios, all these things. And they say, hey, if you have all this, you are successful. But let me tell you something. Right here in this story, we're going to learn about a successful lady named Ruth, and it's not all about money. Ruth is successful because she expects life to be difficult. And she accepts life because of its difficulties and its challenges. She was not willing to give up. Oh, yes, she lost her husband. Yes, she lost her brother-in-law. Yes, she heard the story of Elimelech dying. But, she's willing to say, you know what, yeah, that's a difficult time for me. It's a challenging time for me. Hey, but I'm committed to Naomi because Ruth's name means friendly. She said, I am Naomi's friend, and I'm going to be her friend even through all the difficulties and the challenge. And she might be a little bit bitter right now, but I am going to be her friend. Hey, and Ruth was successful because she was accepting life as it is with all its difficulties and challenges. She was willing to adapt to it, to move to Bethlehem, Judah, and not complain about it. She was willing to accept the responsibilities for the life that God has given her, instead of making excuses for it. Ruth, she was willing to take the negative elements and make the most of it. No matter what the circumstances was, hey, this is my life. This is the person that God has put in my life, named Naomi, and she's very pleasant to be around. Yes, she's going through a hard time, but Ruth is successful because she's willing to accept life as it is, with all its difficulties and challenges. Ruth is successful because she's willing to develop and maintain a positive attitude during these difficult and challenging times. She saw Naomi. Yeah, she said, hey, go away. I have no more sons in my womb. I have no more sons to give you. And if I had one today, are you going to wait till he's old to be able to marry him? Hey, go find yourself a husband. Hey, but she was willing to maintain a positive attitude when Naomi was not positive. She wasn't that pleasant lady that she met at the beginning. She was bitter. She would say, my name is Mara. But she maintained a positive attitude during these difficult times. I mean, Ruth, she looked for the good in Naomi. She looked for the good in others. She was looking for the good in the world, and she found it. Ruth, she sees this life in all of its opportunities and all of the possibilities, and she was willing to explore them. She'd never been out of Moab, the country of Moab. She'd never been to Bethlehem, Judah, and she was willing to go with Naomi, and that's what brings about her success. Ruth is successful because she was building good relationships. She built a good relationship with her husband, a good relationship with her brother-in-law, a good relationship with her sister-in-law, Orpah. She built a good relationship with her mother-in-law, Naomi. And as we see the story go on, she goes into Bethlehem, Judah, and she's gleaning from the fields there. And she builds a great relationship with this man named Boaz, who's kin to her, who redeems her and redeems Naomi and redeems Mahlon and Chilion's and Elimelech's inheritance for himself. Because why? She was successful because she was willing to build great relationships. I mean, she was sensitive to the needs of others. She was sensitive to the needs and feelings of Naomi. She was sensitive to the needs and feelings of Boaz. I mean, Ruth, she's successful because she was always being considerate and faithful and respectful. That's what successful people do. They have a way of bringing out the best in other people. All of a sudden, Naomi's here. The story is, this tragedy happened. Her husband died. Her 2 sons died. Orpah stays back and definitely probably gets married to somebody else. Ruth goes with her. Ruth builds a relationship with Boaz, and Boaz redeems it all and marries Ruth. They have a child named Obed. Obed is born. Obed is given to Naomi to be his mother. And guess what? Through all the trials and difficulties, she was considerate, she was respectful, she was sensitive to the needs of others. Because successful people, they have a sense of direction and purpose, and they know they know where they're going. She knew exactly where she was going. She said, "You know what? I am Naomi's friend. That's my purpose in life." And she makes that commitment to, where thou goest, I will go. Where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people. Thy God, my God. And she makes that commitment. She goes, that is my purpose. My whole purpose in this life was to be Naomi's friend and to be committed to her. That was her direction and that was her purpose. And for this, she was willing to go through these hardships. She was setting goals, the goal of being committed, the goal of learning. And she accepted and enjoyed all the challenges that came with those things. Ruth, she had a strong desire to learn. I mean, Naomi sat down with her and taught her the customs of the land, what was going on with the kinsmen and him being a kinsman to them, but there was a closer one, what she needed to do. And you get into that in chapter 3 and chapter 4, and you see all the things that Ruth did not understand, but she sat at the feet of Naomi and she learned those customs. She was willing to learn. She was willing to set goals and learn, because success people have a desire to learn about life, the world, and themselves. They see learning as a joy and not a duty. They continue to enrich their lives by learning new things and improving themselves. And they are always discovering and always growing. And that's what we see in Ruth. She's successful because she continued to learn about her, the things around her, the people around her, and learning about herself. And she took action. Ruth took action. She took the action of being committed to Naomi, of going into Bethlehem, Judah, of going into the fields and gleaning from the fields, of building relationship with Boaz. And all this success comes about, which is a true story of rags to riches, because of Ruth's commitment to be successful. I mean, she was getting things done because she was not afraid of hard work. She didn't waste time. Successful people, they don't get into ruts or become bored because they are too busy for looking for new experiences. They know they get busy and work hard at the task that is set before them. Ruth, she maintained a high standard in her personal conduct. I mean, Boaz himself said, everybody knows that thou art a virtuous woman. And if you go to Proverbs chapter 31 and you see a virtuous woman, and right here, Ruth is called a virtuous woman. I mean, she maintained high standard in her personal conduct. I mean, she was being honest. She was a person of character. She was a good person. She was truthful, both in her private life and her public life. Ruth understood the difference between living and just existing. She chose to live. And she got the most out of life and had this fairy tale ending because of her attitude towards life. Saying, I'm not just going to exist and let things just happen to me. I'm going to live. And I'm going to follow that God that Naomi has introduced me to. And I'm going to be a friend, because that's my purpose in life, to Naomi. And that commitment to them, she got the most out of life. I mean, she was reaping what she sowed. And I guarantee you, Ruth enjoyed life to the fullest, because when you're successful, you enjoy life to its fullest. Its fullest. What a great story. So the life lesson here is, hey, strive for that thing of we call success. It's more than money. It's more than money. Hopefully this helped you today. Well, don't go away mad. Just go away. God bless you. Thank you for listening to the Forever Faithful podcast, and hope to have you come back and listen to the next episode.